Okay, so hello and welcome back to another video in my updated Discord.js series. In this one, we're going to be creating a command handler. It's going to take quite a while, but not as long as the last video, so don't worry. There won't be any installation processes and importing things, well, not much anyway. We're going to create a very structured system so that there's no like lazy coding and then problems later on. We're going to keep it very structured, and I'll be introducing interfaces if you haven't met those before. If you've been watching my Unity videos as well, you'll probably have come across interfaces, but I'll explain it briefly in this video anyway, and it shouldn't be too hard to get to grips with. So yeah, before I start, obviously, thanks to my patrons, with special thanks to Michael, Paul Robinson, Norwegian Viking, and Phil Baum. If anyone else would like to help out, then the link is in the description below, and also I now have the YouTube membership join button, so if you would like to do that, then go ahead. As well as joining our Discord server in the description if you need help with your code or you just want to, speak with people in the community, then that's always an option. And I think I've plugged everything I can plug. So anyway, let's go on. Oh, also subscribe to the channel. There you go. There, can't forget about that. So what we left off with last time is the bot joins the server and, we can type something. It rejects our message if the bot sent it. Like we don't care about the command if the bot sent it. And we don't care about the command, well, if it doesn't start with a prefix, because remember, this event gets called on any message at all. Let me just zoom in. Okay, so if the message was sent by the bot, we don't care, and if it doesn't start with the prefix, we don't care. And then, I just wrote that there as a placeholder, but now we're going to actually build a command handler. So what we could do is we could have loads of ifs going down this file, and it could go down to line 1,000,000, and we'd have tons of commands, and it'd be all messy. We would have to go Control F and try and find the right line, or we can do the sensible thing, which would be to make a commands folder and just make one file per command, so we easily know where to go, and it's a really good idea anyway. So we're going to be doing that this video, so we can actually import the commands and find them when we need to call them. So let's get into that. So the first thing we want to do is go and we want to write an interface. So an interface is where, I said for the series you need to know about classes and variables, but you might not know about interfaces. It's almost like a class. It kind of explains how a class needs to be, and we'll make it and then I'll show you. So we're going to make a TypeScript file to store our interfaces, which we might add more to later, but for this video we're just going to make one. So let's, in our src folder, just create a new file, and we'll call it api.ts. And in here we're going to need access to the Discord library so we can use some of its features. So import all, so asterisk, as Discord from discord.js. And then now we're going to be making an interface. So the syntax for that is we say export, which is so that we can refer to it on another file when we get access to this one. We can, use this. Interface, because it's an interface, which I'll get into. And we're going to call it I, because that's the syntax for interface. It is in Unity, and I'm pretty sure it is in TypeScript, so I'm going to stick with that. I for interface, bot command. Okay, now this is the same structure we use for our own bot. So if you follow along this series, you might actually be able to look at our bot's code and understand it more if you ever look at that on our GitHub page. But whoops, did not mean to do that. So what we need to do is we need to write in here. For an interface, you explain what functions and sometimes, if you want, what variables, that a class has to have. So if a class uses an interface, it means it has to have those functions. And the reason you do that is so that when we have a list of a certain class, you can also have a list of an interface. So we can have a list of ibot commands, which is what we're going to do. We're going to have a list of commands. And then we can easily just refer to that list and call whatever we want on it. So we're going to write 4 functions. We're going to write a help command so that every command has to have a help command. And all that'll do will tell the person when they use maybe $help, we'll go, if they made a command, if we end up making a command, which we will, called $help, what it'll do is it'll loop through all our ibot commands and call the help function on them all, which will basically get all of their help descriptions, which you can write in the file. So you'll go to one of your command files, you write, this command does this, and then the next one, this command does this, and so the user knows what commands do when they join the server. They can look at a list of them all. So this help command, then we obviously use a colon, and we say what data type does it return? Well, it returns a string. It's just going to be a message to send to the server. So that's easy. Then I'm going to make a function called isThisCommand, because we're going to loop through all our commands, and we want to keep going until we find the commands that we did. And obviously if we don't find any, then it means they just did a prefix and an incorrect spelling on a command, or they just typed something stupid in. So is this command. Now this is a boolean, so obviously if you don't know boolean's true or false, you should know that. So now we're going to say this takes in a parameter command of type string. So when we call this, we pass in the command, whether it's like help or purge or ban or whatever. This is what it's going to be. It's going to be the keyword without the prefix, just the word. And it's of type boolean, which is true or false. And finally, we're going to have run command, which is the thing that actually does the code for the command. So every command's going to be, have a run function. I would call it run, but it's not as descriptive, so I'll call it run command. I've called the other one, is this command. So this needs to take in quite a few arguments. Now, it's really up to you, and you can add to this over time. We're going to pass in, I think it's like 4 variables. We're going to pass in the command again. Actually, well, then again, no, we don't need to pass in the command because there's no need. We've already checked if it's the right thing. We don't need to know the first character. So we're going to pass in args, which is arguments, so all the parameters. So if you type in !ban space Dapperdino, args will be Dapperdino as a single string in an array of strings, so it'll be index 0. Whereas if you put like roll die 6, 10, maybe you want to roll 6 times of a 10-sided die. So args 0 would be the 6th die, and then args 1, sorry, the second thing in the list is args 1, would be the sides on the die. So it just allows us to basically use extra things after the command. So args is going to be a, string, can't type, string, array, so just open close square brackets. We're going to pass in the message object, so that has data on, obviously, the message, when it was sent, who sent it, what time, because we might need to reference that. Anything you need to reference in a command should be here. So this is of type discord.message. And finally, client of type discord.client, because we might need to reference, I don't know, the server count or something. You might have a command that does stuff that only the bot knows. And then this is going to be of type void, which basically just means that the when we run the command, it's going to return nothing. So it's of type void. Okay. Simples. So now that we've done that, we want to go to let's just make a command, for example. Let's go write our command, then we'll set it all up. So to write a command, we'll go into src, create a new folder called commands, and inside here we'll create a new file, and we'll call it test command. All right, test command. And now inside test command, we're going to need oh, I didn't do .ts. So leave me .ts. So we're going to import the Discord library. So import all as Discord from Discord.js. And we're also going to import reference to our interface. So we can do import squiggly brackets ibot command from ... /API. That's just ... means like go up one level, so we go up out of commands into this level of the folders, and we refer to the API command. So because we put it in the squiggly brackets, it means it's going to try and find the ibot command interface inside that file, because API is just the file. And then I can press Control-Alt-F to format that a bit nicer. And the reason they're grayed out is because we haven't used them yet, so it thinks we can get rid of them because they're not used. So obviously when we use them, they'll be fine. So we're going to have to write export, obviously, because we're going to be calling this, we're going to use this class externally. Default. The reason we use default is if we had other classes in here, we're going to refer, when we import the commands, to the default class. So this is going to be the default. It's not that important for you to know because we probably won't be making many other classes, but it's just so that the command handler knows which part of this file is the default class. Because what if we had multiple classes? We shouldn't, but what if we did? It's a safety net, I guess. And it's a class, obviously. And we're going to call it test command. And it implements, and this is where you write your interface, ibot command, which it knows about because we've imported it. So that means now it's going to tell us our code's wrong because the interface tells us we have to have certain functions. So press this little light bulb, implement, and we get them all here. Now obviously it kind of just chucks them in, and I don't like how it's chucked them in. It's kind of messed up the syntax. So let's just spread these out. I like the order it's implemented in because I think that must be the order I laid them out. So I guess up here what we'll do is we'll have a private string. So private read only, because we're never going to change it. Command. I'm going to call it underscore command because it's good practice that private variables use underscores. I mean, everyone has their own preference, but it seems that people in TypeScript generally use underscore command, like underscore for private variables. So we'll do that, and we'll say test command. Now this is just so that in case you wanted to, you might want the class name to be different to the actual command word they put in. But if you don't, then obviously just put the same thing, test command. You can easily tweak this if you need to. So the help string, let's say, when we call help, we want to return a string. So return this command does absolutely nothing. Yeah, that's how good this command is. There you go. I've written my silly string. All right. Is this command? Well, the way we're going to check if the command is this particular one is we're going to return a boolean. So we're going to have to do a check. We're going to say if command that they passed in is equal to, but I'm going to use 3 equals. Now, 2 equals means the same as, and 3 equals means identical to. And the difference is in JavaScript and TypeScript, if you did like 10 is equal to 10, obviously it's going to be right. But if you did 10 is equal to 10 as a string, it would also return true. Now, obviously, it's a bit different in TypeScript, I guess, but it's still better to use triple string, because what that means is it has to be of the same type and value. So you can't compare strings and numbers, like integers or floats or whatever, and have them work. So it's almost like another safety check. You don't have to do this, and it won't be problematic if you don't, but I'd recommend doing it. So if the command is exactly equal to this dot command, okay? If it is, then we'll run the code in the end, basically. Because remember, well, I've not got to it yet, but we will check if it's the right command. If it is, run it. So this is the way we know that it works. I mean, we could even, at some point, make a base class for all commands that has this code already written for us, so we'd have to write it for every single one. But that's just for optimization. For now, we'll just write it as we are for one command. It's easy. And then in this run command, we just write whatever we want the command to do. So I'm going to simply just say message object channel send. It worked. So that's how we know near the end of the video that everything worked. If that gets sent, then we've done it right, because this is the only place we say it. So if we manage to do something and it goes into this file and calls this function, and that means it's all working. So that's all we're going to do for this. I'll see. Let us know it all went well. I might keep this like file as just a test command. Well, it is a test command, that's what it is, but I might just keep it anyway. Just to show us how, like, it's almost like a template command, if you know what I mean. When we make new commands, we'll just duplicate this file and tweak what we need to, so that's nice. This is like the bare bones. So we're going to go back to index, and we're going to actually make it all now. So what do we want to do? Well, first of all, we want to go to the top, and we want to store in here a variable. So we're going to call it commands, and it's going to be of type ibotCommand array. Now notice how when I put an ibotCommand and I hadn't imported it, it actually did it for us, which is very nice. It only used / because it's in the same level, so you'd have to go up one. And I made it, and we're going to set it to an equal array, an empty array. Sorry, just to set it to an empty array because we're going to add to it. We can't make it like a constant because it's going to change. The value is going to change. We're going to add to it and stuff. So just leave it as it is. And we're going to then call a function that we're going to write called load commands. And we're going to have to pass in a string. I've not written it yet, but just letting you know, we're going to pass in so inside, you know, the strings where we can pass in variables. I covered this last video, I think. We're going to pass in __ dir name, like so, / commands. Let me just see what's going on. Cannot find __ dir name. All right, just wait a second, and we're going to write the function first, and we'll come back to that. So down at the bottom, underscore here, underscore. Wow, I'm really in a coding mood, aren't I? Saying underscore in a normal sentence. We're going to write an async function. So, sorry, no, that's for the handling. We're going to have to write the loading first. We're going to write load. It's a function, so function load commands, and we're going to have to take in a path to the commands so that we know like where to look in our file structure, which is what I was passing in. So, commands path string. Wait, path of type string. It's going to be a file path simply. All right, so in here, we want to, first of all, exit if there are no commands, right? If there's no commands, we want to leave. So if not config file .config.commands. Oh, I haven't written that yet. So we're going to actually store in our config file all the commands we want to use. Now, I mean, you might not see a reason for this, but the benefit to it is that if we want to, for example, quickly disable a command or like turn off some commands temporarily and then turn them back on without like deleting the code or commenting it out or something, we can just take it out of that file and add it back in. It is quite useful. We found many uses for it, so I'm just going to say we're going to do that. So we're going to have a list called commands in our config file, and I'll show you how to add that now. So let me just put this on my other screen. What I'll do is I'll quickly just put the code we're going to be writing here, because this is when I was testing it on I write out the code before the video so I can make sure it all works and I don't get stuck in the video. I'm going to go on my other screen to my config file and just remove the token. Okay, so in here, below that, I'm going to put the token back in, obviously. Let me cut it, actually, because I need to be able to put it back. All right, cut. So, comma, new, we're going to call it commands. And then the actual thing is going to be an array. And our first command is just going to be test command. This is the string that it's going to check when we're looping for our commands to load. So we're going to try and find a command called test command. So when you add more, you just do comma, new command, new, and you just keep adding to this list. So whenever you make a new command, just add it to that list for the bot to actually try and, you know, recognize it. So we're going to do that, and I'm just going to put my token back in, and I'm going to click off that config file, just making sure no one steals my bot token. Even though it's in a server with just me and the bot, so you can't really do anything with it anyway. I just want to be extra safe, and also show you guys to be safe with it, and not just to give random people your token. Anyway, so if there's no, obviously exclamation mark, if there are no commands, if there's no config file, or and then we have to treat, because when we import this this commands list from that file, it doesn't actually treat it as a string array, even though it's an array of strings. It's a bit weird like that. So we're just gonna have to write config file .config.commands, that's the one we just made, as string array. So one thing you can do in TypeScript is you can treat a data type as a data type. Now obviously you can only do that for ones that it works as. You can't say treat this number 10 as a Discord message. It's not gonna, well actually no, sorry, you probably could do that, maybe. You can't treat the number 10 as a Discord client. So obviously I can treat an array of strings as a string array. This is just telling it to do that strictly because it isn't doing it by default. So then obviously arrays have length, so you can say .length. And if that is equal to 0. So this first check, actually we're just gonna write return there. So if we can't get the config file, if we haven't set a config file, or if there's just no commands in the file, then don't bother trying to do anything. Now we're gonna loop through all of the commands in our config file. So this is obviously going to try and load them all. So we're going to say for command name of config file.config.commands as string array. We have to choose a string array again. I might find a way around this for a future video, but for now we'll just stick with this. We only have to write it twice there. We don't have to write it any more times, don't worry. So for every like command name in that string array, because that's really what it is, it's just an array of command names, we're going to store an actual reference to the command file, such as test command. We're going to store a reference to this file, so we're going to call it command class, if we've called the other one command name, is equal to require, which lets us load. We're going to load the command path / and then the command name, because that's where it is, .default. So earlier on, the default thing I wrote, we're going to get the default class. That's how it works. So first of all, yeah, as you see here, it's telling us what we need to do. I was just about to tell you. Certain things are like out of the box with JavaScript, like require and fs for file structure. There's certain like modules and stuff, but to actually get it, I don't know if this is just to do with the TypeScript or something. I mean, it even says here we have to do something in our config file. So we're going to quickly type npm I @types/node, and that just lets us have like almost like the default modules that are meant to come with it. So I'm actually wondering, to have curiosity, nah, it doesn't do it for us. I have to type it out. So I'm going to do npm I where's my @ sign? npm I at types/node. And that's going to import the default stuff. And then for it to actually work, I mean, it might say it's going to work, but just to be certain, if we go to config, oh no, I've just leaked my token. Oh well, I'm going to change it after this video, don't worry. I should have just done that anyway. I'll just remake it after the videos if I showed it. It's not the end of the world. So, yeah, I should put the config somewhere else. That's silly of me. If we go to our ts config, that's the one I meant to go to. We're going to add to this config file. If we go here, just add one to the bottom, comma, module resolution of type, node, just like that. Okay. And just to make sure it works, Control-Shift-B, build it, and go back to our index.js. Let's close all these. Right, so currently we're going to store the class that we've written. So test command, we're going to store this class, this class. We can drag over it. We're going to store all of that in this variable command class. Cool. And then now, once we've stored that, we're going to have to actually convert it into an ibot command. It already is one, but obviously we have to treat it as one. So let's store the command as command class, new command class. We're going to treat it as, so the keyword as basically treats it as something else. It's called casting as well. We're treating it as ibot command. And finally, now that it's known that it's an ibot command, if you mouse over, it says the command is an ibot command. We want to add it to that list that we wrote earlier, commands.push, that means it adds it to the end, command. So as we loop through all of the things in that file that we have in the config, all the commands, we're actually going to add it to this list. So that later on, when someone types a command in the server, because this all happens before the bot comes online, it'll go to that commands file and loop through it with all our commands, and if it finds the right one, we'll call the code on it. So that's all our loading stuff done, and as you see here now, this error's gone away up here. So I think that might have been because of the types thing. So anyway, the last thing we need to do now is just write a function, that actually does the command code, and it's not that hard. It's just as short as the other one. So we're gonna just write it above here, I guess. Async. Now, the reason why we make it an async function is that we're going to have an await in this, and what await does is it pauses the execution of the code until it's done, and then it continues. And this is used a lot in web-related things, so Discord is a web client, because due to, latency and lag, stuff takes time. So if you just keep running code, you're going to miss variables, because you might try and grab some data from online somewhere, and it doesn't come back until like 3 seconds later, and, you miss it or something. So async and await... async and await is used to do that. So if we make a function async and we say await and then function name, it means that we're actually going to not do anything after that until this is completed. We can pause in it. So async function handle command. And also, it doesn't just stop your bot working. Don't worry about that. It actually handles it separately. So it doesn't just completely stop your bot's code from running. So discord.message. We're going to take in the message that the person typed. And then we're going to say let command. Well, actually, first of all, let's just write the comment. So we're going to split the string into the command and all of the args. So we're going to say let command equal to. Now, this is going to be quite a complex line here. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to take the entire message they took, so message.content, the entire thing they typed. We're going to split it at every blank space, every space. But we're going to refer to just index 0, which means the first word. Usually that'll be the command, question mark, do this, question mark, test command. So that this is currently just going to be question mark the thing. But we want to replace the question mark because we just want the command word, not the prefix. So we're going to say dot replace. So with this new string, we can replace, and then we pass in the thing we want to replace and what with. So we want to reply the prefix with a blank, with nothing, basically. So we're going to replace config file.config.prefix with an empty string. So now that's just going to be our command word. So from the entire thing they've typed in, that'll just return like do this or hello or test command. All right, and then args is going to be everything else basically. So let args equal to message.content.split at all the blank spaces. Okay, dot slice 1, and that means that we're going to start this array from index 1. We're going to basically get rid of index 0, which is just the command word. So we have everything after that. Okay, they're all the arguments. And now for const command class of commands. So basically we're going to make a variable just for this loop called command class. And that's going to be looping through the list commands, which you've already stored by this point. So it's going to basically go through all commands, and each one during the loop is going to be referred to as command class. And then now we're going to use try. So if you've ever done coding before, you've probably used try and except. So generally you do this with code that can cause problems, or that you expect will have problems often. I don't mean like, oh, you're expecting it not to work. It's more of a case of there can be problems with this kind of thing. So we can use, rather than letting the bot crash, we can just get an error message and just log it to the console. So we're going to try and do this, and we'll write an exception. So try and do this. So let's just say attempt to execute code, but ready in case of a possible error. All right. So now we're going to say try and do this. If not command class dot, and then here's our three functions we wrote earlier, is this command. I have to tell it what the command is. Continue. So what that's saying is, if this command that we're currently checking in the loop, if this one isn't the right one, continue. Now what continue does is, it just means, like, instead of return would just go out of this for loop, but continue goes to the next iteration. So if we've got 10 commands and we're on number 3 and we find out that 3 isn't the right one, rather than doing any more code after that, just go to the next one. So right, check our command class, check if our command class is the correct one. Go to the next iteration of the loop if this isn't the correct command. Okay, so the reason I'm doing all this like lengthy typing and long videos is because it just helps you guys understand it more, because I think the last videos were shorter, which some people like, but because I didn't rush them, they were just, I guess I did rush them. I put too much content in the videos, so I'm fine having the same content in them, but the video taking longer so I can explain in depth. And the reason I'm writing comments is so that you guys understand after you've written it what it does. Now, people have mixed opinions on comments, whether you should or shouldn't write them, because the disadvantage is that, like, if you then go back and change code, but you forget to change the comments, then the comments are wrong and they're lying kinda, and it's misleading. So it's up to you if you actually write the comments, but I'm writing them for your sake. So when I'm in a future video and you forget what something does, you can see what it does. So I'm being very obvious. Like, you know, loop through all of our loaded commands. So after we've, if we get to this bit of code where my cursor is right now, that means that we are on the correct command. This command has been found in the file, so now we're going to go run it. So to run it, we have to use await. As I said, await is used for things that can take time, or that you want to wait until we've done. I mean, await basically means wait. So we're going to wait for command class dot run command, and it needs to take in these arguments we said earlier. So first of all, arg string is just going to be args. It's an array of strings that we've got up here. We're going to pass in the message object, which is this message, and the bot reference, which is client. Boom. And that's it done. All we have to do now really is just write the exception. So I'm just going to say pause execution whilst we run the command's code. And then down here we're going to say catch exception. I can type. We'll say if there is an error, comma, then log the exception. Console.log exception. So if there is an error, then it'll put it into this variable and we can log it. Okay, so I think we are basically done there. So should we go test it? I guess we should go test it. So if we say Control-Shift-B build, done, and then make sure you right click on index.js, open in terminal. I'm going to say node dot, are we getting errors? Ready to go. And we could even add something in here which lets us know each command as we're loading it. So just make sure in your config file that you've actually put the command that you've written. So I've written test command, I've put it in that file. So if I go to Discord now, if I type hello, nothing happens. If I take question mark hello, nothing happens. Oh, it's still running the old code. I forgot to remove that actually. Let's go back to the thing. So as you see here, actually, I've never called handle command. That's handy, isn't it? So what we need to do is, instead of this line here where we send a message to the channel, if I use the prefix, that's all it's really doing, is we want to say like handle the command. Handle command. We need to pass in the message that we've got. And I'll stop it, Control-Shift-B, make sure we build it again because I've just changed the code. It's converting into JavaScript, we've done. And then now we dot, ready to go. All right, so hello doesn't work, question mark hello shouldn't work, question mark test command, it worked. There we go. All right, so we're done with this video. We've built the command handler. So now in the next few videos, we can actually just start writing loads of commands. We've set up a good system for it. We pretty much never need to add anything to this. We might tweak some things, but there's, we don't want it to go too long. It's 75 lines. We don't really need it to go over 100 probably. Maybe eventually, I don't know. Most of our stuff's going to be done in its separate commands now. So obviously when we make new commands, we can just add it to there. Make sure you add it to your config file so that it loads it. And if you've ever written a command that maybe you want to test and then you want to code on it, but maybe you want to have your bot running and you don't want people in your server to use this broken command, the easiest thing to do is just take it out that file. I mean, if you still want to be able to use it yourself, you can obviously just have a check for if the message's ID or the message author's ID is your ID, then let it happen. But yeah, that's this video. Obviously, it's been a bit longer than expected, but I'm not too worried because we covered a lot. I hope you actually learned something from this. It was a bit more advanced than the last video probably. I mean, all we're really doing is, obviously with the load, we're just looping through a file path. We're going to go through this file path here and load the class, treat it as a bot command, and push it to the list. The only real new thing that you shouldn't have come across before, that you might not have, is the interfaces. Just saying, if something is a bot command, which our thing is, it has to have a help function, and is this command function, and a run function. And obviously we can add to this if we want our commands to have other things as well. So yeah, I hope you liked the video. If you want to see more, then obviously leave a like and subscribe, hit the bell icon. Hit the bell icon, is that what people say? I don't know, hit the bell button. I don't know. So yeah, do all that. New video coming in like a day or two. I actually quite enjoy getting back into these now, so they might be more frequent than I originally thought. So apart from that, thanks for watching and goodbye.